been made for, and is there any questions or any changes? May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
A second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. 5-0. All right, the Board of Supervisors held an informational gathering session on Wednesday, May 13th. That's an executive session.
Chris,
Yes.
I'd like to make a recommendation to the chair to move the courtesy of the floor and the public comment to the front of the meeting, specifically because so we don't run out of time. Everybody that wants to talk can stand up and talk. Seems like the past meetings, they've been overextended too long, and I think some people didn't get a chance to get up and say what they wanted to say.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
I agree. I think we should do that.
That's your.
And that was a mistake. Yeah, that was a mistake. I meant to bring that up. With that, we'll go to courtesy of the floor. All right, first one is Todd Rivers.
Hi, guys.
Turn on your mic.
I just wanted to say, it came to my understanding, I didn't realize this before, that PSATS offers training for supervisors. And I didn't realize that it wasn't mandatory. Now, just about every job I've had, there's some type of training, whether it's on the job, apprenticeship, whatever, CE credits, there's some type of training. Some jobs you can afford to learn on the job. But I think as a position as a supervisor, I would think that's something you're making important decisions for your community from day one. And, you know, it's up to you guys, but I think something like that, you might want to consider making that mandatory in the future. Just so I think it would benefit the community as a whole, as well as the members of the board. That's all.
All right, thank you. All right. Next up is gonna be me. I'm gonna go to the podium. As everyone knows, I didn't show up last week because of the article in my newsletter. When that article was written in January, the entire board just met with the developer. At that point, we were still at the early stages of learning about the project and what it could potentially mean to the township. It is important to note that the newsletter came out sometime in the middle of March, even though it was written much earlier during the initial discussion. As a proud member of IBEW Local 102 for 27 years, I always supported union labor and the possibility of work opportunities for the trades. Sometimes this is not just another project for me. This is the township I live in, I care about. Supporting union jobs should not be mistaken as me being automatically in favor of the project itself. I've heard some people say I'm 100% for this project, which I truthfully never said. I stayed quietly publicly for a long time because honestly, I did not know legally what I could say or couldn't say as a township supervisor. As a board, we need to stop fighting and rumors among ourselves and start working together for the good of the community. No matter where anyone stands, we all share the responsibility to protect our township, preserving our agricultural land, and making thoughtful decisions about the future of the place we call home. I agree that protecting our agricultural land is important, and should always be part of the conversation in our township. The article reflected to where things stood at the time and not to where they stand now. And that's it. Thank you.
I guess they will get some comment.
Jeremy's here. Look at the shades on the ground. When you can.
Okay. Next up, we have Howard Bond.
Okay, when I called the township and, I was told that that there wasn't going to be any meeting, tonight because you only dealt with actionable items. At this point in time, within this township, with everything that's going on, to say you're not gonna have any meetings is absolutely ridiculous. You should be having meetings every other week, period. There are discussion items, the meadows, the fire department, different presentations. With the fire department, what's happened with Talon, PP&L, Conagra, Haynes and Kibble House. Mr. Cook, appreciate your comment, but there was silence up until this point, and that's ridiculous. You have poor judgment, you know, with what you've done. And,
I don't think you're here to bash any of the supervisors' client. Speak what you have to speak, but you're not gonna start picking supervisors apart right now, tell you that, right?
well, you keep quiet, nobody acknowledged you. Are you, well, I'm just saying, there are questions that need to be asked and need to be answered. Whether you want to answer them or not, you don't like to answer them. I mean, that's for sure, and I know that.
Yeah.
You know, are you still a
Thank you.
member of the union? At some point, you don't have to answer, but at some point, you're gonna have to make a decision pertaining to the data center, and you have a history. There's a history there, a history in that article. Well, a lot of us will question your direction with that kind of stuff. So, I know you've said that, you know, you don't think you did anything wrong. Well, a lot of us think you did. You know, a lot of us think you did. And a lot of us think you should not just recuse yourself, but should resign. So, no, that's, now you mentioned about other meetings, executive session. Was that with the, consultants? What's happened with that? I mean, you guys need some direction. Did you hire them, not hire them? What, I don't even know if it was with the consultants, but we should know. The township should know. And, no, all you did was say you had an executive session with them. So we don't even know what to. Now with PSATs, and that's a good point, you know what PSAT stands for? Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors. I was a supervisor for 7.5 years. PSAT is an asset. It's something for you to use. You should be calling them. They have staff on hand. They have lawyers on hand. You could have removed the whole situation that you were in. I mean, I can't believe you don't use it. And definitely, and I took the course and a lot of other people did the training session. It was very, very, very helpful. I mean, it really was. And the fact that you haven't done it is, I think it's malfeasance. You know, we're going to have another speaker come up who's on the agenda, Catherine Bueller. And I think you should follow and listen to what she's suggesting. I think it's a really good idea. So, just to finish up, get educated, use PSATs. I mean, they're there to help you instead of just floundering around. And you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And call other townships. I used to do that. Call up the manager of think it's, and they put in, they just put in an ordinance. Find out what they did. Find out what they had to do. Work together, come up with something. Thank you.
All right, next up, we have Sandra Newman.
I'm gonna defer till the end of the meeting.
Okay. All right, next we have
Mr. Cook.
Beverly.
No, Arlene, but I didn't get to sign in because I thought it was at the end of the meeting, but I would like to speak too. So
Okay.
if you could put my name on the list. Whenever.
Beverly Van Hetner.
Turn the mic on.
I think you got it. Oh, there it is.
And this is directed to you, Mr. Cook.
We can't hear you.
You can't hear.
Move it closer. To the mic.
I have to get on top of it. I remember seeing a interview of you on Channel 69, and you mentioned being threatened or threats. Now, what I want to say is, I feel that all of this is a threat to me, what is going on, and not just for myself, the whole community. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Catherine Keeler.
I'll hold it to my agenda item, thank you.
Okay. We have, all it says is Al. Is there an Al?
AI.
And it says, there's a Nancy Mason, but that's from Belvedere. This is for residents and taxpayers right now. All right, so we're gonna move along.
Arlene?
Oh, I thought it was at the end of the day.
Thank you for letting me speak. First of all, I think I'll be the last. But I did look up the township attorney and the second-class township rules and regulations. And I have them right here for anybody to see. I notice our lawyers aren't here. I want to know if they had anything to do ever with any of these people, as far as any of you know, because they have to recuse themselves if they do. And this can lead to penalties, financial, to each of you. If you go beyond what this says, and this, if you are going beyond it, there's a lot to be said for this, the Attorney General says. All right? So you guys have our life in your hands. And let me tell you,
Turned off the mic.
just pulled up next to me.
Turned off the mic.
Give him Joe's, he's not using
Should I
it.
start over?
Now it's okay.
I don't want to either. When you called Nancy Mason's name, she is from Belvedere, New Jersey. The thing that all of you people have to understand, you've got to understand this, is that when you talk about Lower Mount Bethel and what a crisis this is for the township, you fail to recognize that I live a little over a mile from this center, and I live in Upper Mount Bethel Township. Exactly what is Lower Mount Bethel gonna do? Exactly what is Lower Mount Bethel going to do for all the other people? Thousands. There's probably about 5,000 people between Belvedere. Belvedere is probably, what would you say, Nancy, 2 miles away?
1 mile.
Not even 2 miles away.
Yards across the river.
It's right across the river. Everything that affects us here is gonna affect them. And all you people talk about is what you're gonna do for this township. What about the other 3,000 or 4,000 people that this is gonna affect their life? The noise, the light. Have you taken any of that into consideration? I mean, you're not just talking about the township. What you're talking about is money. Money, money, money. That's all we hear. Thomas Jefferson wrote, "The community should be planned with an eye to the effect made upon the human spirit by being continually surrounded with a maximum of beauty." For centuries, Americans have drawn strength and inspiration from the beauty of our country. It would be a neglectful generation indeed, indifferent alike to the judgment of history and the commanded principle, which failed to preserve and extend such a heritage for our descendants. I have children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. I have lived in this community. I have been in Riverton for 80 years. And we are talking about future generations. You know, if you do this, our whole township will be ruined. It will be ruined. You can't replace what you want to take away from us. You can't replace it. Yet the storm of modern change is threatening to blight and diminish in a few decades what has been cherished and protected by the farmers here and by the people that live here for generations and generations. It's been protected by that board that cared about the way of life that we all have here. A growing industry is swallowing up areas of natural beauty with its demands and is placing increased demand on our overburdened areas of recreation and pleasure. The increasing tempo of this growth is already depriving many Americans of the right to live in decent surroundings. Its concern is not with nature alone, but with the total relation between man and the world around him. Its object is not just man's welfare, but the dignity of man's spirit. You need to have dignity here. You need to think about us. We live here. This is where we placed our whole life. And you want to change it. 5 of you want to change it. And believe me, we have a group of people, we're not going to stand for this. We're not going to go away. We're not a bunch of country bumpkins. We are not going to go away. The modern technology, which has added much to our lives, can also have a darker side. Its uncontrolled waste products are menacing the world we live in, our enjoyment and our health. The air we breathe, the water, our soil and wildlife are being blighted by the poisons and chemicals which are the byproducts of technology and industry. Were any of you around when Stein's Farm was on fire? I wish the fire company was here right now. I lived right below it. Yeah, yes, you. It went on for years and years and years. It caught fire on my property. The smoke came down. Black cinders. You wouldn't believe what we had to live with for, 20 years? Because a board decided to allow one person, and they believed him. They believed him. He made all these promises, and they believed him. And what happened after that? Our roads got ruined. Fire after fire after fire. Medical waste brought in. Everything but stumps. And it all ran down to the river. All kinds of Mill Creek right above it, right below it. All ran down. Do you know how much money it cost the township to fix something that they thought would be okay? It wasn't okay. And I know, because I went to Harrisburg and I fought with Gary Aztec, because he was Stein's lawyer. And it was a 20-year job, and it cost my family $200,000 to fight him, whether you know it or not. Because because we did not want a stump dump, pouring all kinds of stuff in the river, smoke coming down where we couldn't breathe. And nobody did anything because you couldn't fix it. It was too late. And if anybody has anything to say different, be my guest. You can tell me what you think. And some of the things we know. Association with beauty can enlarge man's imagination and revive his spirit. Ugliness can demean the people who live among it, and that will be ugly. Day and night, ugliness. At nighttime, bright lights, so you can't see the sky, so you can't see the stars, so you can't see the Big Dipper that I've been looking at my whole entire life. And air that we breathe, and sound, noises, day and night. How are we supposed to live with that? And if it's ugly, it can degrade our existence, and it will be ugly. This means that beauty must not just be a holiday treat, but a part of our daily life. This is our daily life. Waking up in the morning at 6 o'clock in the morning to go outside when it's peaceful. I mean, this is our day. Going to bed at night with light shining. You're talking about people that have put their life savings into their yards and homes and into their farms. I mean, their life savings. This is our life. How would you like this to be done to your life? And you have the choices. And Chris, I'm sorry to say, but you have a conflict of interest. It's as big as can be. I don't know who else. I'm not afraid to say it. I'm 80 years old and I don't care what I say anymore. I don't want to be nice anymore. And I don't have to be nice. And I'm not that, well, I have a little more to say. Because you haven't given us a whole lot of time to speak in all this time. Now we're going to take it. The fire company took a lot more than 3 minutes when they were here. So I think we can take more than 3 minutes. Beauty has other immediate values. It gives us serenity. It gives us joy. It gives us peace. You're taking away the beauty of one of the most beautiful areas in Pennsylvania that we are known for our farming. We are known for our agriculture. When you take away land that one day maybe could grow some kind of crop to feed us, how many people can't even afford food now? And you're going to put up something that's not even going to be viable in about 5 years, and it's just going to sit there? You don't even know how long it's going to last.
Chair, we're waiting over 3 minutes. Okay, you more than leave. We need
I don't
to
care.
this meeting.
Call the cops. We are living in times of change, but if future generations are to remember us more with gratitude than with sorrow, we must achieve more than just the miracles of technology. We must also leave them a glimpse of the world as God really made it, not just what it looked like when we leave it behind. What the good Lord once gave in great abundance has now become rare and very precious. Clean air, clean water, the right to live in this country the way we pretty much want to. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I know we really don't have very much of that anymore in this country, but you guys can show that you care about the people that you are supposed to look after. You can take care of that. And one other thing is that the Bible says, for the love of money is the root of all evil. What does this mean? This means that the Bible does not say that money itself is evil. It is the love of money that's evil. Greed, obsession, and prioritization of wealth above all else that causes problems. Look around you. Look around our country today. The original meaning of this verse highlights how an unhealthy craving for wealth causes people to lose their moral compass. Have any of you lost your moral compass? Leading to all kinds of destructive behaviors like exploitation of the people that elected you, dishonesty for not telling us where you really stand, and sorrow for the whole community that's here. I'm sorry, but this goes way beyond what this company wants. We don't want it. And we will stand behind that for a long, long time. And as I said, I want to tell you, what I just read was from Lyndon B. Johnson. When he, back in 1965, this was part of his speech, when he dedicated many, many national parks. I'm a national park fan. I've been to every one in the country. And I have seen beauty, and I've seen destruction. Don't do this to us. There's things you can do. You're not helpless. You can do whatever you want, but I am tired of looking at that smirk on your face.
Feel good?
Thank you, everyone. And we're gonna move to new business. First item on new business is the rec board recommendation to appoint Emily Williams to the rec board. Is there any discussion from the board?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
This thing's pretty well died, so speak up for you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Okay. Second item under new business is a consideration of the stream habitat improvement practice installation agreement between Lower Mount Bethel and the Morris-Jacoby Watershed Association regarding Meadows Stream Habitat Improvement Project, pending solicitor review and approval. Rich, Pat?
He's good.
Yeah, so, we were notified by the grant committee that, I originally, when I read the grant, I thought that township property falls under public lands, and it said that for public lands, you didn't have to have a 25-year agreement. But they corrected me and said, no, we only consider state land, public lands. Every other piece of property, we need to have a 25-year agreement so that the money spent on the stream habitat devices, the logs, the rock is not ripped out, after it's put in. So basically, they're requiring us to do that if we want the grant, so. My fault, I didn't read the grant well enough, but, so they gave us like a format from DCNR, Sam and Megan, but, the solicitor could change it, I guess, once, so I'm not gonna say much about it, I'm not a lawyer, but that was just a format that DCNR gave us. So basically it says you guys can't touch it for 25 years. If it fails or by natural disaster, gets partially washed away, you don't have to spend any money on it. If we want to spend money on it, then you have to give us access to the land and fix it. That's basically what it says. The way I read it. There's a lot of other words in there.
I'm all for the project, I am, but I agree, because on that front page, there's certain statements in there I'm not overly thrilled. I think the solicitor needs to look at it just to be on the safe side for both sides and parties. Make no mistake, I'm all for the project, I am.
No, I get
But
it.
we'll look for the safety and the well-being of it. I think it needs to be looked at first. Can we get that done by the next meeting? Because I'm sure time is of the essence for you guys as well, right?
Well, we need a motion to have the solicitor review it.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes 5-0. All right, the next item on the consideration of change order for the amount of $2,050 and an additional cubic yard of topsoil seed mulch to the Bethel Trail. Read Martin Creek Beverly Highway Trail reconstruction. Is there any discussion from the board? They only have one change order on that project. Is there any public comment? Is there a motion to approve the change order for the amount of $2,050?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Item number 4, consideration of the LCAT traffic study update at the intersection of Front Street and Hutchison Avenue. Mind that too? Requested by Robert Carter. This will be no cost to the township. Is there any discussion from the board?
Can we just do one of those studies on Front Street? What's the purpose of doing another one?
Well, they're Bob now.
Robert Hart, I'm the Environmental Advisory Council Chair. I requested the studies be updated. It's been 5 years since the last study was done. And with the various discussions in recent months with the data, with the data center and other things, there's a lot of environmental information that we should have or update to keep us abreast, keep the supervisor abreast of what's there. I'm not sure if all of you know when the last traffic study was done at Front Hutchison, Mike would know.
5 years.
And 5 years. There were 6,650 cars went through that intersection in one day. I think it's very valid to understand what changes taken place since then.
I think that's self-factory.
Any questions by anyone? Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve the LTAP traffic study update at the intersection of Front Street and Hutchison Avenue?
I'll make the motion to approve the LTAP traffic study on the intersection of Front Street and Hutchison Avenue, with the stipulation there's no cost to the township.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. The next item under consideration to authorize township to send correspondence on behalf of the Board of Supervisors to Northampton County regarding county council meeting held on May 7, 2026. Is there any discussion from the board?
Yeah, who came up with this?
I did.
You wrote it out?
I didn't write it down.
Could you speak into the speaker, please?
I didn't write it down.
I'm sorry?
No, I didn't write it down.
I'm assuming the manager did that, correct? So, so obviously for everyone, we all got emails Friday with this letter. Pertains to me going to county council to speak as a resident. Yes, I am a township supervisor. In no way did I say, and there is a video, that I'm speaking on behalf of the board of directors or on the township. So, long and short of it, we still haven't gotten a response back from this county worker. We did as a board vote and approve, as well as you voted also, Mr. Chairman. Correct. To do farming at the meadows. So, any of the comments of what you said, us and we a lot, yes, I sure did, because those are words, or descriptions. Again, I never said once that I was representing the board or the township. This was, I have the floor right now. So,
Can you use the mic?
it's dead. You got others? Oh, there you go. Wrong side, sorry. So, nice gesture, sorry, thank you. Slow and painful. So, the motion was done, we did approve this. So yes, I went to county council, and I called the person out for not doing their job, in my opinion, as I'm allowed to as a township resident and a Northampton County resident taxpayer. So to send this letter, as well as you, Mr. Chairman, came up with this and wanted the manager to do this, to type this letter out without the entire board's approval. And you did do a phone call to each member, except for one. That is a direct violation of the Sunshine Law. You can do straw polls to get a general consensus, but you have to include every single board member. I was not contacted. I got the call after the fact of the heads up, this is coming. I was in complete rights to go to county council, and this lady has known about this project since February, been contacted numerous times, distinctly told our manager before our last meeting, I will get back to you by Friday or Monday at the latest, per our manager telling me this. And yet we still haven't heard back from her. To go around and to exclude me from a decision, a phone call, that's immoral. Unethical, I should say, not immoral, unethical. As an entire board. To hold someone accountable is what we're supposed to do as residents, and even sitting up here as elected officials. So to send a letter, if you want to send a letter on your own, can't stop you. Go ahead, have at it. But this entire board to send an apology letter for a person that talked out, that just happens to be on this board also, I have huge problems with that. Again, this Northampton County lady still has not responded back. We still have no information about this. Of course, the other day, we happened to get an email from another agency saying that we can't farm the meadows. So,
Yeah, let's not.
So, isn't that interesting? We get a letter from the state, but not our own county. I distinctly asked, brought the thought process up in February, if this was even allowed. Point taken. I didn't even quite think I didn't realize about all the other grants and the possible restrictions. Kudos to him. The manager said she looked into this. We approved farming at the meadows as a board based on that information provided from the manager. So, we made that decision on sound information we were given. But now all of a sudden it's being taken back. And y'all are trying to do some back deal to embarrass me, which that's your prerogative, that's your right. But this isn't quite right. If any of you want to send it individually, have at it. I can give you the stamp. But as a board, I completely and utterly disagree with this letter, as well as it was a violation of Sunshine Law, plain and simple. All you're trying to do tonight is now put it on the agenda to try to make it legal. But the violation still persists.
The week this came out is the week of all your stuff. You couldn't be contacted. I tried to call you 3 times that week. Couldn't be bothered for different reasons. That's your personal right. But you could talk to other supervisors as well as the manager to have them do this letter. Mr. Ascani knew I was at county council. He cheered me on. The manager knew I was going that day. She cheered me on in different ways. So now for us to send an apology letter, I strongly disagree. Thank you.
When it came up,
The Meadows project is done now.
What's that mean? Well, what does that mean? What's done?
when it came up,
Oh, okay.
Megan
They can't do it.
did
They can't
contact,
farm it. Good.
Sherry Acevedo. As we all know, the government's slow. She's not gonna get an answer overnight, she's not gonna get an answer in a week. She had to call the solicitor had to do their homework, we still haven't heard back. She had to contact the state. The NCR sent us, they denied it. We can't have farming at the Meadows.
Yay!
What it comes down to is we can maintain it better. There's ways that we can maintain it so it's not so hideous the way it's been for the past 8 years.
Oh, I know. It was hitting us.
With that said, the we and the us, I watched it, okay? You knew you had a mouse in your pocket or you were talking about the entire board, okay? And furthermore, he's not sitting here tonight, but I think when it came up, the solicitor should have made some recommendations to the board, of which they did not. And maybe should have advised us to check the deed, because it says on the deed that we cannot do it. We didn't know that as a board, okay? Megan did not know that as a manager, but the solicitor damn well should have known it, because he actually participated, and I believe he did all the paperwork.
Board should have done it.
When we, no one interrupted me. When we bought that property.
You could have run it by the Open Space Committee and the EAC for professional guidance on it.
This is how this goes. Imagine how it goes on a data.
You guys are really attacking one another, huh?
I'd like to make a motion to send this letter to the county, to Tara Zarinsky, Shared Acevedo Conservation Coordinator. We have to work with these people all the time. We want grants, we have to go through them to get the grants. Last thing we want to do is, burn bridges anywhere. Megan, do you read the record? Do you read that the record?
As Supervisor Ascani stated, this is addressed to Northampton County Council, Tara Zarinsky and Sherry Acevedo. Dear sirs and madams, on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, I am writing to offer our sincere apology for confusion that may have resulted from recent comments made during your meeting held on Thursday, May 7th, 2026. It has come to our attention that statements delivered by one member of our board may have conveyed the impression that it reflected the position of the board as a whole. We want to clarify that the remarks represented the perspective of that individual member only and were not authorized or adopted by the full board. We regret any misunderstanding this may have caused and recognize the importance of clear, unified communication, particularly in matters involving our working relationship with the county. The board values transparency, accuracy, and mutual respect, and we take this matter seriously. Moving forward, we will take steps to ensure that any official statements on behalf of the board are clearly identified and properly authorized. The township recognizes and values its long-standing relationship with the county and its staff, and extends particular appreciation to Sherry Acevedo for her consistent professionalism and helpful support in all interactions with the township. We appreciate your understanding and remain committed to maintaining a constructive and collaborative relationship.
Keeper's name should be on
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'm gonna second the motion as is with the way it's written exactly.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries.
How about opposed, Mr. Chairman? You can call the proper vote. You only called for you asked for one part of the vote, not the second vote.
All opposed. Everybody opposed. Is anybody opposed? Sorry.
Aye.
All right. Motion carries 4-1. Item number 6 is consideration regarding elimination of compensation for working supervisors. Is there any discussion from the board?
Where did this come from?
This came from, I believe, the roadmaster position, and that most supervisors should be getting paid.
Which one, Master? We have to.
I have a recommendation for the board, if they'll entertain it. We have way more important things to be talking about other than this, and this has been on the agenda since January. I'm gonna make a motion to eliminate the roadmaster position completely and make it a liaison board-appointed position. That way, working supervisor title in the second-class township code stays that way for any emergency situation when anyone is called upon. That's my motion.
I will second that motion.
Oh, yeah, we can't do that.
No, we can't do that.
All right, that's my recommendation to be on the agenda at the next meeting.
Okay.
Better?
Okay, Leslie?
Sure.
All right. Item number 7 is a presentation from Pat McInerney. And Bob Park. I said Bob. Oh, okay.
I'll try to keep this, short as I can. I would just like to point out.
We can't hear you.
I would just like to point out, in ordinance 2002-07, what's the purpose of EAC? To advise local government agencies. Now, there's a whole list, I'll let you read it on your own. Air, water, land, the whole deal. But I think this issue that came up about the meadows really succinctly points out one of the problems that we're trying to deal with here, Pat and myself. The EAC is the only committee that meets every month. Others meet as needed, but we're there every month. There's 4 members here, Pat, Bill Humphries is in the back, Jenny Terpster's over on the side. When you consider what's going to be going, or excuse me, if the board had come to the EAC and tasked us with evaluating other alternative uses for the meadows, we would have come down to probably the exact same thing that we wrote in our joint letter to the board, that we did not believe that it would be legal, in so many words. Further investigation brought up the deed, which says, and you have received the information from Sherry Acevedo. I called, Lynn Posinger, the day before, and Sherry called the township office and left a message to discuss the issue of the farming at the meadows. He evidently got in touch with Sherry and called the office, the director. I think when you look at there was a whole tangle of laws in Pennsylvania, case studies that issues with parks and when parks are given to cities and so forth, it's pretty clear that using it for something like that in the manner that it was done was gonna be a problem. So we recommend in the future, as Bill mentioned a few minutes ago, come to us and ask us what problem you'd like us to investigate. Most of us, thankfully, are retired. Except Jim. You gentlemen, for the most part, have 9 to 5 jobs or something else. So when you have an issue, we can look it up. And we can talk to other people, there's other resources that we can reach out to. But to not use EAC and open space and the other committees and that is not productive for your time. And as this letter points out, really makes the township look stubbed and toes, big time. I have nothing else.
I'd just like to second what Bob says. What we just need is a little more communication, and we're here to help you. We really are. Jeff, you said, like, relating to the farming the meadows, you've said all along, I just want to make it better, and I believe you. But if you had come to us and said, here's what we think to do, farm it, and we would have said, okay, we're going to have a problem right away. But at least we would have started a dialogue, and we could have come up with other things. Since the farming issue is now gone, we still have that problem, so we're still going to have to look into that, and that's on our agenda all the time, and we're going to continue to look at possibilities for, tidying that up a little bit. But I do take exception to what you said about being an eyesore. If you go look at it now, it actually looks like Oz. It's filled with white flowers with a lovely meandering lane going through it. Anyway, that's not here nor there. I'm the chairman of the Open Space Committee, and at our last meeting, I invited the EAC because of that issue. I said, look, we have to tell the board that we're here for you. We would like to help you, and whenever you have questions that relate to open space, any kind of environmental issue, kick them our way. Just tell Meg, get an email to Bob or get an email to Pat, take care of that. Now, the Open Space Committee meets on the 4th Monday of every month. We are not like the EAC. We do not meet all the time. We just meet when we have business. We will be having business this month. Unfortunately, the 4th Monday is also Memorial Day, so we're going to be conducting it on Tuesday. We have been looking into how we can remediate the fact that Lower Mount Bethel farmland is assessed at a lower rate than, say, Washington Township because of our zoning. And we believe that there is a remedy for that, and that's what we have been looking at, and that's what we're going to be looking at on that Tuesday when we come back. So I just wanted to share that with you, and I also know that there'd be a lot of people here, so we can tell a lot of people what's going on in the township, and they can find out things that way as well. So again, we're here to help you. All you have to do is let us know when you need help. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. You really don't do it at every meeting, but could you give reports like the fire company does and just come up and just give a report monthly of what's going on, what you guys are doing, and, what you were doing?
Sure.
You know what I mean? Just take a couple minutes to stand up and just express what's going on. And people will hear it and a word will get out there.
Okay.
And aside from the minutes?
Aside from the minutes that we submit?
Yeah, people like to hear more than they like to hear.
Okay. Now, if we don't have a meeting that month, we'll just tell Meg we have nothing to report, so we won't show up and say, hey, we got nothing to report. Okay? Okay. Thank you.
Pat, just real quick, I appreciate all that, and both of you said it. The white flowers is still weed. Again, not fun joke in here, guys. I will own so back in January, our reorg meeting, first meeting, the supervisors' reports. That's where I started with the farming of the meadows. From that meeting until the February one, it got put on. I will own that it probably did not come across the way it should have been. Maybe the manager, maybe us, whoever, we should have reached out a little bit different. I'll take that one, I'll own that. We should have, back in January, February, done a little bit better. Fair point. The meadows, the farming is a dead deal. Let's just try to make stuff look better though. Thank you.
Number 8 under new business is a presentation from Catherine Bueller.
Members of the board, I am asking you to adopt a resolution directing preparation of a curative amendment. This is a temporary 180-day pause on the acceptance and processing of zoning applications related to large-scale industrial development, specifically data centers, so the township has time to properly evaluate the long-term consequences for our community. We are not asking you to approve the actual curative amendment, although we have a very good one in draft. Just a resolution so you and the Planning Commission have time to review, research, and document the changes needed to protect our residents. In fact, I believe all you have to do is declare by formal action that a portion of our zoning is inadequate. You can do this tonight. Then you have 30 days to define what portion needs review/revisions, and then you have another 180 days to document the changes. A resolution you could direct Attorney Zader to draft tonight. Will I hear a motion? We'll see. And all you can do then is vote yes at the very next meeting. Our group has consulted with 3 different attorneys, and their strong advice is to adopt this resolution. Not one said the developers want to be good neighbors, or that this is a different situation and therefore a curative amendment isn't needed. Those are words of someone supporting the developer, not Lower Mount Bethel. This is not a request to stop progress permanently. It is a request for responsible governance. The pace and scale of these proposed developments raise serious concerns that land use, compatibility, infrastructure demands, environmental impacts, emergency services, water usage, power consumption, traffic, noise, and the permanent loss of prime agricultural land. These are issues that deserve careful study, not rushed decisions under pressure from developers' timelines. A 180-day pause would allow the township the opportunity to review and strengthen existing zoning ordinances, consult qualified planning, environmental, and legal experts, evaluate impacts on residents, farms, and local businesses. Careful, meaningful public input. We've been working on this for 4 months. We'll need a community benefit agreement as part of this plan. Haven't heard any mention of that from anyone. Ensure future decisions reflect the comprehensive plan and character of our community. Without this resolution, once these applications are submitted, we will have only conditional use guidelines for the industrial zone, which may not be strong enough to protect our residents who live within a few miles, like Delhaven, Hillendale, Taylor, and Gravel Hill. And if the plan is approved, the consequences are lasting and difficult, if not impossible, to reverse. The residents who live here will bear these impacts long after the developers leave. Can you imagine a 5-story building taking up hundreds of acres right next to your house? Many residents feel unheard and overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the proposal. Unheard because our board is fine to speak with outside groups, but not your own constituents at a supervisor meeting. What are you thinking? What are your plans? Why is this such a big secret? You have both the authority and responsibility to ensure that zoning decisions are made carefully, lawfully, and in the best interest of the township as a whole, which may mean you shouldn't take the easy way out. Let me stress, because I know it's not easy being a supervisor. We're in this together. Let us help you solve this. We want to help, and we don't cost anything. I respectfully urge you to adopt a 180-day moratorium resolution so the township can make informed decisions before irreversible changes are made to our community. Thank you.
Joe, were you able to comment on that, Joe Zader?
Sure, be glad to.
Thank you.
I agree with Mrs. Mueller when she said that the current township ordinance is not adequate to deal with data center properly. Well, let me explain what a clear amendment is and what it isn't. I've lived through it a number of times over the years on both sides of the table. A clear amendment can be initiated by a municipality, can also be initiated by a developer. The municipal clear amendment process by which the township initiates it is the municipality planning code section 609.2.
You can't hear the volume up, we can't hear it.
It's a mechanism by which the municipality gets breathing space to adopt a zoning ordinance amendment. That breathing space is 180 degrees as was mentioned. The key in pure amendment being able to move forward, however, is that it must be based upon not a declaration by the township supervisors that the ordinance is inadequate. That's not sufficient. You have to declare that it's unlawful, that it's invalid with regard to certain respects. It's a very different standard. When a municipal declaration occurs, it precludes the developer from submitting a landowner curative amendment during that time. However, it does not prevent a developer from making the submission of a plan under the existing zoning ordinance, nor does it stop a developer from asking the township to amend its ordinance. So, in my view, I don't see this process as being applicable, and I definitely don't see it as being helpful to the township in connection with the data center use or data center proposal. Here's why. As I said, the premise for the curative amendment process is that there needs to be an invalidity in the zoning ordinance, which LMBT wishes to cure. Lack of adequate protections to address a use, such as a data center use, is not a legitimate basis for a curative amendment. We have to, in pursuing a curative amendment, state that the township zoning ordinance as it stands today is not valid for some particular reason with respect to a data center. But I looked at the zoning ordinance, and ordinance section 27-1002.3, subsection cap D, provides this. It says that any lawful use not otherwise listed in any zoning district schedule is to be used permitted as a conditional use pursuant to zoning ordinance section 27-1705. That provision I just mentioned there is what we typically refer to in the zoning law as a catch-all provision. And when the township was going through the comprehensive plan process and then followed by the zoning ordinance amendment process, it was certainly my recommendation, and it was the recommendation of the planning consultant, that there be a catch-all provision. And the reason to do that is to make sure that a zoning ordinance can't be declared as substantively invalid because it excludes particular uses. No zoning ordinance is going to itemize every particular use that is conceivable under the sun. But by having a catch-all provision, in this case that catch-all provision is in the industrial district, it provides a mechanism where these stray uses that come along over the years that weren't necessarily conceived in the ordinance to begin with, it's where they can go. So, section 1705 of the zoning ordinance, it has an application process for a conditional use. It has a site plan review process. And it places requirements on an applicant to provide a detailed description of the proposed use with respect to a number of different matters, such as nature of on-site activities and operations that are proposed, scale of operation, number of employees, environmental impacts that are likely to be generated, such as noise, vibration, electrical disturbance, wastewater, stormwater, solid waste disposal, etc. And the specific measures employed to mitigate or eliminate negative impacts. Doesn't mean that they necessarily have to have those, but you're supposed to report on them. Suitability of the proposed conditional use for the site, including considering ensuring disturbance of steep slopes, ensure woodlands, wetlands, floodplains, springs, and other important natural features. The process in the township ordinance further requires that the supervisors refer the matter to the township planning commission and/or the zoning officer for consideration. It requires the conduct of a public hearing in accordance with the municipality planning code. It then lists standards that need to be met and are itemized in subsections 10A through 10O, which cover approximately 2 pages of the zoning ordinance. Now, clearly what I just discussed are not itemized standards for a specific data center use. They're general standards that apply to any use that needs to come in under a catch-all provision. So, what would happen if a data center were to submit a plan today? If they submit a plan to put a data center in the ag district, it gets turned down. There's no basis at all for them to go in the ag district. They have to come in on bent knees and ask the township supervisors to rezone. And with the Crane property, that's essentially what they have done. They could, however, if they were to use industrial ground, whether it's part of Talon's or other industrial ground as presently zoned, they would have a right to come in today under the catch-all provision, the conditional use provisions that I just outlined very briefly. Those conditional use provisions apply in the industrial district. They don't apply in the ag district or for any farmland that's not in the industrial district. So, as of this point in time, a developer cannot put anything in the ag district because that requires an amendment to the zoning ordinance. Under Pennsylvania state law, every municipality, with a small asterisk exception for joint zoning with other municipalities, and there are none of those in the Rio Valley, I'm not even sure there are any in the state. There are a lot of joint comp plans, but not any joint zoning that I'm aware of. But absent that asterisk, under state law, every municipality must provide for every single conceivable use under the sun. And the way you do that is have a catch-all provision, because by doing that, you have every conceivable use captured in one manner or another. So, could a data center developer challenge the township ordinance? Sure. Data center developer could file it through amendment themselves if they chose to do that. Would the developer be successful? In my view, not unless the law changes. And that's something to be attuned to, because as you probably all know or have heard, Governor Shapiro has an interest in promoting data centers. Who knows what form and shape that's going to take over the course of time, but we know that the dissatisfaction with data centers being expressed more around Bethel is occurring everywhere. And I think the legislators are attuned to that. So how could a data center user, developer challenge the ordinance? Well, since data centers are provided for indirectly through the catch-all provision, what they would need to do is essentially challenge the ordinance by saying, yes, technically you provide for a data center, but it doesn't meet the fair share requirements of the zoning law. And we'll explain that a bit. When the comp plan was going through its process and the zoning ordinance was being adopted, the township had a planning consultant involved. And one of the tasks of the planning consultants, or any of the township's planning consultant, was to perform a fair share analysis so that it could be the conclusion of that consultant that the different types of uses, industrial, commercial, residential, high density, residential, low density, that based upon the type of community that the township is, it provides for a fair share in dealing with whether or not the township is in the path of growth. And no two plans are necessarily going to view it identically, but it's the kind of thing that planners spend their time doing and figuring out. And the conclusion was that low enough Buffalo, I'm going from memory here a bit, but clearly there was a conclusion the fair share analysis was satisfactory in Northern Bethel Township, meaning that the township has enough industrial ground, enough commercial ground, enough high density residential, low density residential, institutional, etc., for the type of community that it is. And what the courts look at in that regard is whether the community is in the path of growth. If the community is in the path of growth, then you're expected to have more of those intense type of uses in high-density residential than if you're predominantly an agricultural community like this township is, and we have 2, 3, or 4 building permits issued a year as opposed to 200 or 300 being issued a year. So the planning consultant concluded that the fair share was met. So unless there's a change in the law, such as maybe the governor pushing through the legislature a statute that says, because data centers are so critical and because we need to have more of them, we're changing the fair share analysis approach to things with respect to data centers. Unless that's something along those lines would happen, which I don't foresee in the foreseeable future, and is not based upon the tea leaves that we're all looking at now, I don't see the township ordinance being declared by any judge as being inadequate, as being substantively unlawful. And I think that to maybe point a little bit in the direction of this fair share analysis, if you were to contrast Lower Mount Bethel with, for example, one of the townships where there are a lot of warehouses, Upper McConaughey is a good example. A township like Lower Mount Bethel would never be expected to have the same measure of industrial, commercial, and high-density residential that a community like Upper McConaughey or another one that has a lot of warehouses would. Just 2 different kinds of communities. So keep in mind that even if you were to ignore everything that I've said and pass a municipal curative, initiate that process, the 180 days, it does not prevent a developer from coming in and going into the industrial district of the data center. It just means that there's a moratorium on the developer declaring the township ordinance or filing a curative amendment itself, declaring that they believe the township zoning ordinance is substantively invalid. That's really all it does. And keep in mind that the end goal of a curative amendment is to cure a deficiency, to cure an unlawful, illegal aspect of the zoning ordinance. So you've got to declare what that illegality is in the first instance. Saying that the current ordinance is inadequate doesn't do the job. So what would the township declare to be unlawful? Well, the first thing that comes to mind, since the developer is asking the township to voluntarily, through the action of the supervisors, rezone ag land, the obvious choice would be to say it's unlawful because we need to have some more ag land zoned industrial to allow for a data center. And that's not a result that certainly the residents don't want, and I have a sense that the supervisors don't necessarily want that either. So that would be the end result of filing the process, pursuing the process for a curative amendment. So that basically is my summary that I prepared to speak to this issue. I'll turn it back over to the board.
Any questions?
Can you hear me okay? Mm-hmm. Okay. My question is also for Joe in this aspect, okay, because that was very lengthy and I could repeat that if I wanted to. At this point, Joe, giving this to the planning commission to come up with zoning inside of our industrial district, is this the proper time to do something like that, to set those guidelines and parameters?
I think pursuing an amendment to the zoning ordinance and using the planning commission's expertise to get that rolling, I think is a good idea. Because I do think our ordinance is inadequate. I just don't think that the curative amendment process helps because we have nothing to cure from a legal standpoint. I think we have lots to cure from a planning standpoint. It needs to be embodied in an ordinance to be more protective of the township. But I don't think I know the MPC process for curative amendment wasn't meant to address what we have here. And if you were to pursue that process, yeah, maybe somebody challenges it, maybe they don't. But ultimately, if it were challenged, the moratorium wouldn't stick.
Okay, thank you, Joe. What is the proper procedure then for us as a board to moving forward? What would be our timeline, and what can we do anything tonight? Is this an agenda item? What's the timeline for this?
but usually adoption of an ordinance, putting together a draft ordinance preceded by discussion and ideas, and what kinds of things does the township want to go into an ordinance like that. I believe I shared, not documentation-wise, but I did mention, for example, when I served as solicitor in South Bethel Township, late last year, we adopted probably what I think is the most comprehensive data center ordinance in the region. And hundreds and hundreds of man-hours went into it, and no reason that the township couldn't look to that and other adopted ordinances as sort of a starting point, and maybe cherry pick what concepts you like, what concepts you don't like, and use that as sort of a springboard to get going on the drafting process. But ultimately, what has to happen is concepts need to make their way into a draft ordinance, and then ultimately the draft ordinance would get a public hearing, and the planning commission would review it, and ultimately the board has a chance to adopt it if you choose to do so.
Is that something that can be, the planning commission can start on immediately, or is that something that has to be an agenda item and the board needs to officially vote to meet with the planning commission?
There are essentially three ways an ordinance can get going. One is a submission by a property owner or developer. You don't have that here, it's on the table yet, you don't have it here. It can be initiated by the planning commission itself, or it can be initiated by a directive from the board of supervisors to the planning commission to get going on. Ordinarily, that's accompanied by a draft ordinance, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. And so if you're going to let the planning commission be your eyes and ears and get going on developing the concepts and taking into account whatever you direct them to take into account, and to take into account their own experiences and wisdom and research as to what makes sense for a data center, yeah, I think we can get going on that, and I think it's a good idea.
Joe, is there any legality where we've got to put a committee together with maybe a supervisor or two, planning commission, and some township residents to get a committee and sit down and put this ordinance together? Just to get some input from the people that are going to be affected by it. I mean, I'm sure that they would like to have input.
I think public input is a good idea, certainly. Particularly in a hot button issue like this, it's going to impact a lot of people if it materializes as a nuisance township. So I think public input's a good idea. My off-the-cuff reaction is, rather than forming a committee, let the planning commission run with it, and people that want to participate in that process can attend the planning commission meetings and give their input. And that could include a supervisor or two as well, since you suggested that.
That was exactly going to be my suggestion, Joe, is, you know, we could set up a meeting schedule. I mean, the planning commission meets on the third Tuesday? On the third Tuesday, but I think in light of what we want to do, we might want to set up like 2 meetings a month, at least until we are moving along. And if we put that out there, then I would recommend anybody who has, you know, opinions, and I know a lot of people have already like found ordinances that they want to adopt already. You know, in the beginning it might be chaotic, but eventually we can, you know, whittle it down and get to something that, you know, really suits our township. My other question.
Stay with me for a second. I for whatever reason, I can hear everybody well, but I cannot see anybody for whatever reason. I only see myself.
Okay, this is.
Am I correct? Believe that was Pat McInerney speaking?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that was your suggestion, but that was the same one I was going to make. My other question is this. We have worked with John Snook on a number of past ordinances, comp plans, things like that. I find him to be a tremendous resource. My recommendation to you as the board is, I know this is a work session, you can't like make motions and pass things tonight, but like think about and talk about, you know, at what level you would like to fund him, you know, maybe not, every meeting, but every other meeting, and you could give him a certain amount of time that he could put in, just so that we would have some kind of contract with him where he could help us. Because he was invaluable when we did the zoning ordinance, and as you heard Mr. Zeta tonight, that zoning ordinance is pretty airtight. I mean, for something like a data center, which didn't even exist when we were doing that, we still are pretty well covered. Obviously, there's a lot of things that would go into a data center that we have to address, and that's why we would want to come up with another standalone ordinance just for that. So, again, I would ask the board to think about that, and then do what you have to do, and then send it along to us, and we'll take the ball and run with it. You're welcome.
We would have to vote on it. We have to come up with a monetary, so it should just be an agenda item for the next meeting, so we can discuss it and figure out what direction we want.
My question was, do we go ahead and get him for right off the bat, or do you give the planning commission 1 or 2 meetings that kind of sort some of the whatever, and then he can come in and then have that information? I just don't want to, like, the first one, just, wow, everyone's yelling, screaming.
I think it'd be wise for maybe Pat to reach out to John, find out interest, get us some information as far as hourly.
I told you though that, and I've talked to John earlier, and he still says, okay, if you guys need any help, let me know. But I don't know that if I need any help, he didn't mean like, I'll send you some info, not I want to dive back into it.
Right.
I sure hope he does want to, because like I said, working with him, was very, very fruitful in the past.
Finding out
I talk to other townships who have done this, because it moves really fast. And having 1 meeting a month, all of this will be for naught. It'll be too late. They will quickly make their filings, and it'll be too late. And I know that's scary, we're a small township, but that's how fast we have to move. Talk to the other townships, they'll tell you.
If they were hell-bent on making a filing to try to beat an ordinance, they could have done it already, and would be under the conditional use provisions that I outlined. If they were hell-bent on challenging through the curative amendment process or the alternative process, which is a validity challenge, a substantive challenge of the ordinance through the zoning hearing board process, developer can do that too, and they've not done any of that yet. So is it possible that they will try to submit prior to an ordinance being adopted? Yeah, it is. But this may not be the only data center proposal that comes the township's way, and so it makes sense to move ahead on the ordinance modification process. But any ordinance modification process has a mandatory time frame that's associated with it. And even something that's simple and straightforward is going to take a couple of months. Something as complex as a data center, it's going to take a while. And that's just the nature of the beast, unfortunately.
We have to look for a way to put a moratorium on it. And other townships are doing it. Whether it's going to get challenged and thrown out, we don't know. But they've done it. They're doing it.
I would venture to say if they're doing it, if other townships are doing it, they perhaps don't have a catch-all provision like we do, or they're citing something in their ordinance relating to data centers that is unlawful, that they need to fix, or they're pursuing it with a moratorium that isn't going to stick if it's ever challenged because it's really not a legitimate curative amendment to the municipal process. One of those three things is what's going to happen in those situations.
Maybe somebody should look into it though to see if there is something in ours that we could claim might be illegal, that might be exactly what we need for the moratorium.
And a starting point for the ordinance.
So, Pat, when's your next meeting?
Well, it would be the third.
It's actually tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night?
Yeah.
third Tuesday.
You don't have plans, do you?
We don't have the meeting scheduled. I mean, like I said, the planning commission only meets when we have business. We don't show up and we don't have it.
You have business.
But I mean, getting it together for tomorrow night, you know, I'm willing to meet, but I don't know if anybody else is. It would have to be advertised, you know, it's election day tomorrow here, this is where we meet. So.
That's why I recommend the committee.
Do it Wednesday.
Yeah, that's why I would get one as soon as we can. And I would say.
All right, so.
It's gonna be every 2 weeks. What day?
I'll do it.
So, we want to bring this to the board, to everyone's attention. Good conversations. I've been after trying to find more information out from the developer. We finally met with them last Thursday. What day was it? Friday. So, Supervisor DeBerdinas, myself, Megan, Melissa, zoning officer, and who was the other one? I don't remember. They're all. It was with John Callahan and Julie, what's her? Labar from Talon. They had been after to meet with us since the town hall to gauge where we were at with the whole rezoning and all the data stuff. So we finally talked. And the long and short of it, Mike was trying to use polite words until I just blurted it of, looked right at Mr. Callahan and said, you are in bed with Talon Energies. They have industrial ground. You want to propose something there, that's your prerogative. We'll cross that bridge. But it is a hard no for the Crane property and the rezoning of the ag land, period. And I'm not going to speak for Mike or the rest of them, but I felt such a relief, and I'm pretty sure they all did as well, that it was just out there. It was finally out, and when I mean them, I mean the developers as well. I believe they actually had already contemplated that the Crane property was not going to happen even before their town hall, just because of the public outcry and the thoughts and the process. And then definitely after the town hall, they were definitely starstruck. Maybe that's not the right term.
So what are their plans now?
So I'm getting there, Trying to give everyone as much information, okay? So through the whole conversations, the Crane property is done. As far as Mike and I, we can't speak for the other three, but the Crane property is the dead deal to us, as far as the rezoning of the ag down there, period. Somehow through the conversation, I even asked Mr. Callahan, what was the quarry bought for? It drives me nuts of not knowing what that was. And he actually did, he kind of joked and laughed and said it was a package deal. They had to take the quarry if they wanted that. They didn't want it, they figured they'll figure it out down the road. Well, now that the Crane property is off the table, somehow or another through their thought process is possibly putting the data center down inside the quarry. So, the quarry is zoned ag, but, here's the but, it was overturned in court, and there is a quarry in there. Am I intrigued by that process? I am. I am intrigued for a few reasons. You're not turning dirt over. It's already down in there, and it's down the hole. You're not seeing it. Concerns? where's the noise coming from? How high, you know, where all will it dissipate? Will it just stay in there? If it stays in there, that's their problem. So those are still concerns. Make no make no mistake. The water, they already said that, it's coming from the river, the closed loops, they're all whatever. So there will be no water, and that will be our stance too, as far as Mike and I can't speak for the others. They will not pull any water from the ground. That will be a hard no also. Go ahead.
From the river.
See if this works.
Not to mention the river almost runs dry.
I know.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's?
Julie from Talon. She was very instrumental in this meeting, asking us because Talon has the ability to, they own industrial land, they have the ability to put a data center on industrial land. She wants guidelines from the township before they even ever submit a plan. She said it right to us while we were sitting there. So the process would be, that's why I'm pushing to find out where we need to be as far as a zoning ordinance for it, and through the planning commission and through all of our proper channels, get our guidelines, and then we would see some kind of submission from them. But, as Jeffrey stated, we told them, we're not putting it on our farmland. This is not happening. So I think that the conversation went well. We got answers, because we didn't have answers for a long time. We got to see them play all of their cards, which they did. And from the start, I kind of envisioned that they were gonna have a master plan to leave it on industrial, because it's the least fight for them. So we have nothing still, nothing has been submitted to us. But anything is coming across as just an idea, so there's nothing set in stone. Everything would have to go through this board, through the proper channels. So I think that we're in a better place than we were 2 weeks ago. And we just have to, I really wanna see that the restrictions be in place as fast as we can do it, as accurately as we can do it, because that'll in turn limit everything for the future.
We look at Kyle Crane property.
So.
Speculative.
Yeah.
They would buy it though.
They said something about keeping that purchase, and this is all speculative, and putting the entire thing in ag preservation.
So.
But that's a minor detail that it's just hearsay.
To clear that up, the Kyle Crane property, for the residents that truly know, the 40-acre fields. And there's a smaller field between 40-acre field and Kyle Crane. That field, they had talked about putting a drip system in there. Taking their catch water from the runoffs and piping it over there. If they did that, they would still have to get right away or buy Kyle Crane's property. That's their problem, not ours. They also proposed where the farmland part was the Treleski farm and the other parts. So I use old farm names. What that is from the quarry over to the ash pit, from the highway back to the power plant. That is still zoned ag. There's a small portion that touches in the industrial, but that's ag. So the long and short, they were thinking if we would give them the rezone on that part, they would turn around and put the Crane property, all 300 and however many acres, in the farmland preservation. I questioned it, pretty decent, pretty hard on it. Sounds good, sounds intriguing.
No.
To me, here's a lollipop, but I'm gonna take the groceries over here. I'm not overly thrilled with that.
So they do want us to change the land use.
Yes.
On that part. That would be a discussion.
You're saying no.
It's correct, it's all correct.
It was all just ideas. They didn't have anything solid for us to present us. They were just like, oh, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this. Their biggest thing was tank farm on industrial.
Correct.
That to me is, if that happens there, that's allowable use there where those tanks are. That's in an industrial. They would have to meet all of our guidelines that we're gonna set, but everything else would be discussion and.
But they have to meet the guidelines or else. That's the problem. What's the or else? Because if they agree to whatever it is, shit hits the fan, and it does. All of a sudden, they bring in generators because they're not making their electric, they're using more water than they said that they were gonna. They're actually leaching it all underground. And I know we have the DEP and all this stuff, and I've dealt with the DEP in my job. They didn't do shit. When there's ash flying through the sky, and I would have massive headaches working at a car dealership while the place across the street is blowing stuff up and through the air all day, all night long. They don't do anything. There's no remediation for any of the community, for the residents, when they do what they're not supposed to do, which they are doing all over the country. All over Texas, Virginia. They're all way over the limits of the things that they proposed they were gonna do. They are trucking in generators that they were never supposed to have. They are killing people, killing this them. But there's no repercussions. I don't know what needs to be done to hold them accountable. I feel like we're going to be hand-tied to something. Like my brother-in-law's an engineer. He said, this is the problem. You got your zoning rules. If they can get within that, you're going to be hard pressed to stop them. But we need to find ways to hold them, if we end up with anything in the industrial zone or whatever, to hold them accountable for what they say they're going to do, and not just say so and say, well, then we'll just, the neighbors can relentlessly call the DEP. We already heard just now what happened at the Stein farm. You can make all those phone calls. Nothing's ever happening until you yourself spend $200,000 in your life's earnings to go fight it yourself, because the township isn't going to do it, DEP's not going to do it, nobody's going to do it for you if the residents don't have to do it. I don't know what the answer is to that, but we need experts to tell us, well, how do we hold these people accountable when we end up with this? We're going to end up with something. Something's going to end up here. What do we do?
Mike, in your meeting with Talon, was there any discussion on the Talon properties that are currently ag along the corner of Delhaven and Martin Street?
Yes, as he showed a map, I put my finger there and carried it all the way to Libby Bushes and said, this is off the table for us, because it is zoned ag.
Correct, right.
And that was the point we made,
Right.
but I said there can be nothing in these current setbacks the way they are.
I
And
raised-
they were like, oh no, absolutely.
I raised the question to Mr. Mauser at the last EAC meeting, wondering how many township residents understand that that's town property, even though it's farm.
Right.
I think a lot of people don't know that.
It's owned by like 3 or 4.
There's a whole list of lines.
And subsidiaries.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there also the possibility that town would say, okay, we're not gonna lease it anymore to farmland?
What, the buffer area?
The farm,
The farm difference?
Yeah.
From basically the tank to Delhaven, and then along.
Whatever's currently being farmed, town.
That wasn't even part of the discussion, because they said that was that land is off the table to its current buffer.
Okay. I'm just curious if they would, you know what, we'll terminate the leases on that and put stone down there.
Like, Kiefer only owns the one.
He only owns
down
the
the bottom.
He's only the third one down on Delhaven, the other ones are not.
So, getting this into the hands of the right people to set our own parameters, to set our rules that we all want to see for the if it were to go here, that's important. We need to figure out what our rules need to be for where it is allowed, so that we have that stuff in place.
And as well as put enough of the restrictions on, it might not be worth it to them.
Yes.
And then they go away.
The board is not gonna have much control over a lot of the things that they're gonna do on industrial. It's gonna be DEP or other state or federal agencies.
There'll be other restrictive agencies besides us.
Outside, it'll be
Other
other
things that
many
happen.
things will be out of their control in that regard. It'll be up to them.
Right. And that's the risk with industrial land. Any industrial land has to do so. Yes.
You and Jeff, you guys had this meeting, is it your statement that you're against or it is not going to happen on agricultural land, period?
Yes.
There's no interest in your meeting of rezone agricultural land at all?
No, the only thing they said they were gonna present us with 2 options, industrial and the quarry option, which is zoned ag, we're aware of that. But I'd like to see what that looks like on paper, just to see what it looked like. No, I meant like if they were to give us a design rendering of, hey, we can utilize an old abandoned quarry to put one of these.
Well,
Just-
I don't have a quarry, don't have to be an old quarry, only on New Jersey, the slopes of the farm, that we do that every.
All a part of this process with like.
Just so you're saying, it doesn't have to be an old abandoned quarry, it can be revitalized if it's supposed to be.
And it even could be a quarry like East Bangor with all the Hudson River sludge too.
It could.
But also we go back to the restrictions. We can we can demand certain testings, certain research, certain, what's the right word I'm looking for, but it's, you can do your noise stuff, how long is that, how far out is that low frequency noise going? There's a lot of other things that we can also put in place and demand from them certain studies for this information.
We need to do the studies. We can't trust them to do their own studies.
It could be from independent, obviously. I'm with you, I'm not disagreeing.
We need before and then monitoring. There needs to be before studies of ground, water, noise.
I'd like to do one for the ordinance 8 starting points and the research I've done. And I'm also curious if at the meeting with Talon, if they disclose their relationship with Amazon and building their data centers and partnering with them and expansion to expand all of
What I can tell you, what they told us at that meeting was that they had no end user for here in this township. Now, I heard the same thing.
hard to believe.
I know.
Since Amazon is investing $20 billion in the state of Pennsylvania for data center uses, and they're already pulling off the Susquehanna site.
But if you look, my personal opinion on that same subject is they're waiting to find out how big of an area they can get from us.
Yeah.
If it's only small.
Give them nothing.
Then that curtails who their client is.
Yeah, we don't give them anything,
Talon are putting up a
nothing.
fight in other farming communities, Montour County, Danville.
Correct.
They're suing governmental agencies who are turning them down.
And I am concerned of Shapiro coming in and just bullying.
Well, that's what they're waiting
And
for.
that's the second part.
The $880 million, but line budget.
I looked up, actually, Talon built their own data center and sold it to Amazon.
Correct.
So Talon doesn't even technically need an end user, they'll just build it themselves.
But at least we're on the right path. Yes, yes. You have to turn on.
Mr. Zader, can you hear? Joe Guest, I just had a quick question, because we were talking about the ordinances that we have in place, but we don't have in place, the possibility of going to a conditional use evaluation for this kind of development. Don't we have pretty extensive ordinances already? We have warehouse restrictions. This type of facility strikes me as a giant warehouse. I looked at our ordinances. We have language about warehouses. They have to be a certain size. So there seems to be some kind of existing language. Is that something that we'd be looking to? My question is, why would it go to a conditional use if we already have language, some language, not extensive, nothing to cover the magnitude project like this, but would we not look to that section of our zoning, Mr. Zader? I think it's 27-1531.
The answer to that question is absolutely. If they were to submit tomorrow for a data center in the industrial district on whatever piece of property, Talon or otherwise, the conditional use provisions in the ordinance would govern. And when you look at those provisions, section 1705, subsections 10A through O, it's about 2 pages of standards that are there. And while they're not data center specific, they are standards. Those would have to be addressed.
And with the part about warehouses, it's not in that specific section you cited, but would that have relevance? Or would that be like to your mind, taking something in court, them saying that doesn't cover it, we say, yeah, we have size restrictions on warehouses right here.
The provisions that I mentioned are general conditional use provisions which apply to every conditional use. So it would apply to warehouses, it would apply to data centers. But the specific warehouse provisions that are independent of the general requirements, those would not apply to a data center.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, we're moving on.
old business. The first item under old business is the consideration of PennDOT's offer to purchase right-of-way for transportation improvement impact on the agricultural conservation easement located on UP 1, number 610-1-14-0117.
So I can save everyone time on this one. It has already been done, the work has already been done. Talked to Mr. Brewer, it's pretty well a mute point for us to talk about.
Okay.
Maybe the public wants,
What is it?
So this went back to previous meeting down, Bangor Martin Creek Highway, where they're going to be down towards Mr. Scotty's house. They're doing a pipe across the road, replacing culverts, all that stuff, and gutters. PennDOT came in and was taking a very small portion of Mr. Brewer's property for eminent domain. A lot of it was compensated, but then there was a certain part that was not compensated. And I had spoken in the last meeting, I wanted to look into more, because I am not a fan whatsoever of any kind of eminent domains whatsoever. But I did speak with him after, they had actually already did the work the day of that meeting. So our previous board meeting, they had already did the work. So unfortunately, it's a moot point, and he has to deal with them on his own, unfortunately, so.
The reason they came back to the board, it went to the county because the land's in preservation, and the state took it.
So that was gone. Number two, we already went through this, we got to discussion. Is there a motion to approve PennDOT's offer to purchase right-of-way for transportation's improvement impact on the agricultural conservation easement located on UP 1, number 610-114-0117? We have a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Last item under old business. And this is gonna be squashed anyway. So next we have a discussion regarding the farming at the meadows. Okay, all correspondences is located in the municipal building. And next, we have approval of bills.
You might cut out.
The amount for the bills from May 10th to including May 18th, $25,307.03.
I'll make a motion to pay the bills.
Wait a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Now we have courtesy report. All right, we have public comment next. Anybody want to comment?
Good evening, everyone. Matt Hackenberg. I just want to take a moment, and I want to say thank you to Solicitor Zader for going through that and giving explanation of key amendment resolution. I really appreciate that. And I also want to especially thank Jeff and Mike for taking the lead in talking to the developer, and then most importantly, coming here and communicating with us. I think that'll go a long way to make people feel much more at ease. Because in reality, we're all on the same team. It's not us versus you. But when you're sitting here silent and we're not seeing leadership, we're not seeing anything being done, all we can do is sit here in silence and stew and think that there's some corruption, there's some underhand deals going on. So the two of you, thank you. I want to give you both a round of applause. And I hope we can keep it up going forward. And let's rebuild between you, all members of supervisors. I know you all have differences. We can work together with yourselves and work with the town and tackle this problem together. Thank you.
I'm not disagreeing with Mr. Zader. I think your argument about not doing a curative amendment, it sounded like a logical argument. My only thought was in 6092, I didn't see anything saying that the zoning is unlawful. It just says invalid. I don't know if that makes a difference in your decision whether to pursue a curative amendment or not, but I didn't see anything about unlawful in that part of it.
The case law is clear that invalid and unlawful, illegal, they're all synonymous in the context of the curative amendment.
I know Mike and Jeff had mentioned you guys were on board with not changing the zoning from agriculture. Is the rest of the board in concurrence with them? Absolutely.
Yes, again. Yeah, I just wanted to, thank you guys for, it's been a really good meeting, productive, good to hear from everyone. I just wanted to say about this issue that I think we do have the power as a township to regulate any potential development in our town so that it fits within the town that we live in. We have a lot of restrictions, so if I wanted to, there's some interesting things in our zoning, right? If I wanted to operate a strip club 24 hours a day, and I felt like that was a very important thing for, an economic development plan or what have you, I couldn't operate it later than 10 p.m. That's our zoning ordinance has adult commercial businesses. You have to close at 10 p.m. Pretty good to know, and it might preclude someone like myself from doing that. We also have regulations. There's actually ordinances that speak to the specific square footage of a building that you can erect under certain industrial uses. So I think all of those are really good things to look at, and it's entirely possible our township could accommodate this kind of development, at a smaller scale. I think that might be something to consider. Maybe if it's a 10,000 square foot facility, no big whoop. But given that we're a town of 3,000 people, the scale is overwhelming. So I just want to thank everyone and really look at that just because all uses are permitted doesn't mean that you can operate something in the way that you might wish to if you could do anything in the world with it. So thanks.
Hi, good evening. My name's Maya Ben Rassam. I'm the Delaware Riverkeeper, leader of the Delaware Riverkeeper Network, and I also lead the Green Amendments for the Generations organization that is helping communities in the Commonwealth enforce their constitutional right to pure water, clean air, and a healthy environment, and ensuring that all government officials fulfill their duty to protect those rights as well as the natural resources of the state. So I just really wanted to express tremendous appreciation for tonight's meeting. I wasn't sure what I was coming into. I had heard a lot of things about what your perspectives may or may not be. I still wonder about some of them, but we'll see as time moves forward. But I did just want to raise a few observations. Of course, I left my paper over there, so so we'll go from the top of my head. First off, I just want to suggest to you that while I certainly respect that it felt like a collegial conversation, I don't believe for 1 second that Talon came into that meeting with just a bunch of ideas. I think Talon came in with a plan, and they wanted to know what you thought about that. They were bouncing ideas off of you, and they were feeding off of the information that you provided them. I also would like to suggest to you that the agricultural protections and the need to rezone for a data center to go on agricultural lands, that's your superpower. And I would not give that away for 1 second, whether you're talking about the Charlesky farm or the quarry. That's your power, hold on to it, don't give it to them. And you know, the fact of the matter is, if you were to rezone the quarry today because of some perception of promise from the data center, they will for sure go in and build their data center on the quarry today, and you can bet your bottom dollar they'll be back next year to build another data center on the rest of the industrial lands that they own. So maintain that power, don't give that away. And then just a final thing, to the extent that they're offering promises of protection of the Crane farm and saying, you know, if you cut this deal with us, we'll put that farm into permanent preservation. I also wouldn't believe them for 1 second on that. As long as Talon owns that farm, they ultimately will have the power, and they will have the power to be able to play games down the line and change the rules for what can happen on that farm. And if you don't believe that, well, you should. But, you know, in Montour, where the community very successfully beat back a proposal by Talon, one of the things that was on the table was Talon was coming in the door talking about the Montour Preserve, which is a piece of property that they have ownership in, that the community had enjoyed and had benefited for years and years and years. And as I understood it, they were talking about, in some ways, pulling the Montour Preserve into their data center project, but they were promising now to protect a small little slice, the boat launch and the sugar shack, where now they were going to be permanently preserved. But the rest of the parcel was going to have exposure with regards to the data center. So again, when they start making promises of open space and that kind of thing, also I would highly, highly question that. As long as Talon has the power, as long as they have the ownership, well, as long as they have the ownership, they'll ultimately have the power. So again, I just wanted to appreciate the conversation. I wanted to let you know that the Delaware Riverkeeper is here with you. I wanted you to know that Green Amendments for the Generations is here with you. And as long as you use your constitutional duty to protect the environmental rights of the people of this community and the natural resources of this community, we will be standing with you, because it's an incredible opportunity to do good. And I just hope that you will embrace it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jason Taylor. I own and operate a dairy farm in very close proximity of the proposed data center and options of the Terlesky farm in the Ash Pond area. I just want to express my concerns on more than just land usage, water usage, site being obnoxious, but the sound that is generated by these that I've heard, I've not done actual research, but it is very detrimental to livestock in any way that has, if that's their livelihood, it's going to more or less end their business/operation because of the stress put towards the livestock and the animals. I just hope you take this in consideration with coming up with ordinances of trying to stop or, you know, move them elsewhere where it would not affect the, I know I'm only one person, but it's just, I just want to put it out there.
You're not one person.
No, no.
and he is wrong, he is not the only one that if that goes in down there, it directly affects him, yes, with his cows. It is a straight quarter mile, if that. Well, right over the hill is where I live with my beef cows. So that little frequency could actually affect me in my living just as well. I will tell you, Jason, I spent quite a bit of time on the phone today, as I told you I would. I believe there was over half a dozen calls between state, livestock associations, the cattlemen's, some other breeders. Phone calls even went as far out to Illinois. The lady was out there with a seminar, and no one actually really thought much about this. So it's actually gaining grounds. So I am with you on it. I am trying to find out more for it. A lot of what I found out the other day, unfortunately, was the lack of information and data to prove one way or the other.
Also new.
Correct, absolutely, correct. So I am trying.
For that is, you can gain whatever you gain from having a data center.
Correct.
But you can't get back what you lose.
Absolutely.
The reason I wanted to defer my comments to the end of the meeting is I wanted to share my observations with you. Can you hear me? Of this meeting. And it involves how the meeting was run, but also public participation. I think it was very important that the comments came up from Todd Brerin about educating yourselves. Everybody on this board has an obligation to become familiar with the Pennsylvania Municipal Code and our own ordinances, because it will only serve you better to be informed. I, as well as a fair number of the people here, have been very concerned about the lack of transparency and communication that this board has had with the residents. I also think that Pat and Bob Hart were very astute in bringing to your attention the fact that you have somehow failed to use the talent and dedication and commitment and knowledge of the people who are here to serve on the EAC and the Open Space Committee. I also have to comment on the fact that it's really important to behave in a professional fashion. It's essential if we want to have effective collaboration, and that's what we're here for. In conclusion, I will say that I'm impressed with how the meeting went tonight. There weren't very many harsh words. You respected the people that are here, even allowing somebody to exceed the 3-minute limit, because all of us have felt somewhat excluded. So kudos to you for taking a little step forward, and I hope you guys can continue on this course, because it's the way to bring the community together. Thank you.
Hi, I hope you'll give me the courtesy and indulge me for a moment. I am not a resident of your community. I do live across the river. I did send you an email. I hope you all had an opportunity to read it. I'm your neighbor. I live just across the river, as do about 3,000 additional people. We will be impacted by this development, regardless of how big or how small it is. Many years ago, well, it wasn't that many years ago, we were severely impacted by the coal emissions when the plant was burning coal. We have the highest asthma rates in the area, even higher than some urban areas in New Jersey, and it was attributed to the power plant. Fortunately, they switched to gas, but if they're gonna be running all the time, there's a lot more emissions. We will get the emissions directly across the river, because that's the way the wind blows. We will get the sound. We already hear the power plant running all the time. So please, not only consider your residents that you are responsible for, but your neighbors that are right nearby also, that this will impact. Thank you for your time.
I just have one quick thing. I'm sorry if I missed it because I was late. Has Zader Law ever been involved with the proposed developers that's working in this township? In any way?
As proposed developers?
Have you represented them in any way?
Yes.
You have. So do you consider that a conflict of interest? Do you consider that a conflict of interest in representing our township?
I disclosed it to the Board of Supervisors when this first got going and said if they want me to step down, I'm glad to, but I believe I'll be impartial and I'm going to represent the interests of the township. And that promise still stands. If the board wants me to step down, I'll do it tonight.
It's up to you guys. Thank you.
Does he think he should step down?
He disclosed it to us a long time ago, I had no problem. I had more, tremendous faith in Joe.
Excuse me, I'll take a minute. This is Arlie Tisha.
We can't hear you.
Oh, sorry, Arlene Tisha, 5 property in Upper Mount Bethel and Lower Mount Bethel. But I also have here the township attorney prior contact with the firm. Whether the township solicitor has a conflict depends entirely on the nature and depth of that prior contact. It is a conflict if the attorney currently represents the building firm or previously represented them on a substantially related matter. And it is a direct conflict of interest. They cannot represent the township because they possess confidential information or split loyalties. Now, I don't know if you have that. I mean, to me, this is your second-class township from the state. And I think it directly applies. I don't think we can just make decisions that we feel like making. And you may be a very, very good attorney. However, this is important to all of our lives. There cannot be a conflict of interest. How are we supposed to know? I know we can send a letter to the Attorney General or whoever it is, and he will tell us every single person that has met with this company from day one. And we can get that information. But a conflict of interest is a conflict of interest. And I think you have to think seriously about it. I'm not sure how the people feel, but this is my take. And I have been on the township attorney and also township supervisors. And lawfully, as I said before, it could substantially cost you financially and a lot of other bad stuff if we break your own rules for a second-class township.
Chris, I think it's a valid point. I think it needs to be discussed.
Thank you.
I respect that.
Would that apply to Chris also? Sorry.
Well, it should.
Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna ask somebody, it's gotta be asked on both sides of the fence. Oh, yeah.
If you're gonna call out Chris for being, or Joe, then you need to call out Chris also for the conflict of interest. You can't have one without the other.
Not even close. There's apples and oranges.
Same concept.
It's apples and oranges.
No, it's not. Come back and say different.
It's very clear that there are ways around criticism on the board of supervisors, as far as I could read. There is, and they just can't vote, although we like your vote, we hope. But if there is a tie, out of the 5 of you, he would be able to vote at that point. I believe that's what, all I read. And it's there, it's right there, if anybody wants to look, second class township. All the rules are there. We have to follow the rules. My house burned down. It took us over 7 months to get a permit for the exact, to be on the exact same spot we were without any problems whatsoever. But it took forever. So this thing is major to our lives, and you should follow your own laws. It doesn't mean you can't sit there. And I'm not saying that I don't want you to sit there, because I think you've been very clear, and I think you've been very upfront. I just wish you had been upfront earlier. That would have been best. The truth is always the best method. And this is ethics, and this is important, and there are consequences for the entire township if this isn't followed.
I think you should step down.
Joe, can you explain the situation that Chris is in? Chris is employed by somebody. We all know what Chris does for a living. Is that a conflict of interest for Chris to vote on anything regarding the data center? Because of who he's employed by?
His
I have
credibility is
general
shot.
knowledge of Chris's situation. I remember seeing the article that came out, but I need to have more facts to give a definitive opinion. Want to do that to the board in executive session, and what you do with that, that's up to you.
I would make a motion to adjourn the evening.
All right, I am making a motion to adjourn.